Hello and welcome to Buzz About, discussions with skilled professionals about how they got there and why they do it. All recorded here at 15 North Studios in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Today we talk portrait photography and being an artist.
So we're here today with Megan Tribuno, who is a portrait photographer local here to Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Megan, how's it going?
It's going great.
Great. So can you just tell me what the specificity is of portrait photography as opposed to most photography?
I mean, it's got a broad range to it. I specifically, my niche is for family, maternity, and newborn. So that's where I focus at. I've done product photography in the past. I work with local businesses to help create images that will accentuate their website or promote a certain product, help with their content creation for social medias. And I've been doing product photography for children's clothing and handmade shops for quite a while, but currently the most work that I do is with families.
Great. And as far as like a broad knowledge of photography, why focus on families and products?
It's my passion. It's something that sparks my creativity. It's something that I'm excited about creating. And when you have an art avenue that you're working with, and that's your creative outlet, you need to be able to be inspired by what you're working with. Otherwise, you kind of lose your joy in it. And if you're going to be an artist, you're probably doing it for the joy of it. So might as well do something that you love.
Totally agree. When you are photographing families, you talked before about an intimate setting. Like, how important is that for you to actually capture moments of families?
I work with connection-based, connection-focused images. So when, I don't know, a lot of people think of photography as like those headshots at school in 8th grade where you like are cheesing real hard and it looks so awkward. And when we do the photos, of course, we're going to get that fireplace mantle photo where we're all looking at the camera, and that's the one that everyone wants printed for announcements, for Christmas cards, for what have you. But the majority of the sessions are very intimate with me, and I find that is the images that in years to come, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, whatever it be, when your children are looking back at your sessions or in your images in the books of the hopefully printed images from our sessions, they're going to look at that moment when mom is touching little one's face, or there's a wispy hair out of place that dad's tucking behind the little one's ear, or there's going to be a connection where someone's handing someone a flower or telling them a secret or just whispering farts in their ear, like just to get that genuine smile, that in the moment where we're nice and close and it looks like a big cuddle session, those moments where they're super emotive and you can feel the love emanating from the image, like that's why I focus on intimate sessions.
Wow.
The importance of it for me.
Yeah, that's why. How do you get to that point? I feel like as a cinematographer, I just kind of film everything and then I pick out the good moments in there. How do you get like strangers to get to the point where they're comfortable enough to be able to do these things in front of you?
Have that moment. I'm a talker, so I love to love to talk. I think part of the job of being a photographer is that you do enjoy being around people, and you're able to create like a common ground or like able to make people easy around you. But I mean, a lot of it goes into prepping a client beforehand, setting the proper expectations, letting them know that it'll be like a child-led session. I think one of my favorite things to tell clients is that during our session, the most important thing is that everything that happens is the most adorable thing that has happened that day. It could be that your child is picking their nose. It could be, but that is super cute right there. Like the children feed off of adult energies and adults feed off of adult energies. So if you can clearly see that one partner is not in the mood for this, I mean, sometimes maybe that partner just needs time out. Like, hey, come over here and help me out for a second. The best way to make people comfortable is just to create that moment for them to realize that this is a no screen time. This is the moment, these are the minutes that you have to just be with your family. Like, we have everything going on in life. There's so many things, your job, your car, your house, the garden needs to be like weeded. Like, there's a million things going on. And a session creates the space where you can just calm down. And sometimes it's just nice to remind them, hey, we've got this. This is a time to just be with your family. This is the yes time. This is when everything is really cute and we can just really take a moment to appreciate each other. So that.
And I'm sure I'm sure there's been some parents who've promised ice cream before all this if they come.
1,000%. I bring marshmallows and Smarties to sessions. I am not
great.
above bribery.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
I love to have people bring comfort things. I don't know if your
Sure.
kid wants. I just did a session. The kid only wanted his peanut butter crackers, and they were a part of the session. Like, peanut butter crackers are in there. I have aesthetically pleasing bags I can bring along for such an occasion.
Yes, and you have a beautiful spot on Bridge Street here in Phoenixville.
Yes.
How important is it to have a space like that for yourself to provide the intimacy for the families?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I never wanted a studio. Years and years ago, I have this thing where I say I'm never going to do that, and about 2 years later, I'm doing it.
Great.
And I always thought that a studio would be something that I just wouldn't be able to be creative in, but a studio actually, I found, helps me to broaden my creativity. Not only is it a space where I have consistent light and I have a controlled setting with places like a workflow that I know well and can prompt families and mothers and children to work around. I have spaces there where if someone just needs a break, I have a space for that as well. 'Cause that's, like I said, it's a child-led session with me. And I think that's important when you're doing family sessions, maternity or newborn, that little kids only have a small time frame of which they're able to concentrate on what is going on. And you constantly need to be changing things to redirect and focus on something. A studio really allows that. And I never thought that I would think that. I always thought like outdoor was where it's at. I thrive personally in outdoor settings. My children thrive in outdoor settings. There's so much going on around you. But a studio just really allows me to like calm down. We're not outdoor. We can play chase and we can play hide and seek and we can go look for ladybugs and find lots of things around us to create those connections in the photos. But in the studio, we can take the moment to just breathe and be with each other and figure out what it is that we love about each other and remind each other like, hey, mommy, your smile is really beautiful. Hey, daddy, you're super strong. I really love when you pick me up. I love these cuddles with you. I don't get to do this often. It just creates that moment for quietness and togetherness.
That's great. That's great. And you photograph your own children a lot, right?
Yeah.
For like products, is that more difficult or less difficult?
It's been a work in progress.
Yeah.
My oldest is 8 years old, and she started doing product photography around 11 months old. So we started working with small shops and handmade clothing. I'm a huge advocate for slower fashion and sustainable clothing and how things are made and what goes on our children. I really want to support actual people. So that isn't, I know, not for everyone, but it's something that's really important to me. So we started around 11 months working with companies who were making clothing, accessories, shoes. And at first it was difficult. My journey to photography started with nature and landscape. Mm-hmm. So to go from outdoor photography to children, specifically a toddler who doesn't stop moving, was quite difficult. But now they're pros at it. It's almost something that not even almost, it's something that they look forward to. So if I have like a downtime where I'm not working with a business for a product for children, they're like, hey mom, like, can we go do photos? Like, it's something that we bond over now. And it's created a love for photography in my children, which I really love. They have big visions and ideas for prompts and compositions of photos and how people should be placed and what kind of action would create this kind of emotion. Zoe, my oldest, who's 8, like I said, is very into creating those connections, and she has ideas for how she wants photos done. So it's fun to concept plan with her for images.
Yeah, it's great to share them.
It's really, it's something that we bond very frequently over. And Ava, she's just a pistol. She's 4 years old, and she's into photos, but you have a time limit with her because she's 4 years old.
Sure.
As you do with all children. So again, it's all back to engaging.
Yeah, that's amazing because, even with my kids, I really enjoy just giving them a camera and say, go see what you can create with this.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and edit it for them just to see what they've done and see what they've created. And I think sharing that for me, because, there is an art to this. There's a lot of framing and focus and iris and zoom and things you got to keep in mind all the time, every time. But there's an art to it. And obviously you consider yourself an artist. Like, how has that affected you? Like, just the art look of being a photographer?
I feel like it makes me see things differently. Like, I don't know, down to color composition, what you're putting together, what you're seeing together, why something is visually impactful to you. So, that's just, and again, back to children, just something that you can bond with. They're really into art, and I'd like to think that sometimes it's because I'm really into art.
Sure. That's great. No, I love that. Yeah, because you told me right before this that your background is not in photography. Like, you discovered this along the way.
Yeah.
Like myself, I was a mechanical engineer who had a thing for cameras and picked up a camera.
I went to school for massage therapy. I did a trade school for massage therapy. I thought when I was growing up, I wanted to be a physical therapist. I was in physical therapy a lot. I was into sports, so I thought physical therapy is where it's at. It seems like I've gotten a lot of knowledge at this. And then I switched gears, went to massage therapy for a trade school. It was like a 9-month certification program. And then I found photography through traveling and documenting those experiences. So it was something that just kind of manifested over time, where I realized I really loved this craft.
Well, that's great. So let me ask you, is there like another form of photography that you enjoy other than portraits? Like, do you like taking pictures of birds or landscapes?
I really love macro photography, like where you're getting into so macro is like really close-up images, like simplified, really close-up images of an object. So I'm super attracted to water droplets on leaves or petals or insects. My girls and I have a love for nature, so we're constantly trying to save the bees. And we're looking at their wings, and we're looking for certain insects, and we're out in the garden often trying to see what's growing. I'm a terrible gardener, but we try, and it's really fun to just get our hands in the dirt and find what bugs are living underneath. And I don't know, to go out in the morning and just see the dewdrops on everything, or to find really neat we were walking in the woods the other day and found like dried magnolia flowers. They looked like wood. It was the coolest thing. But to like take photos, I digress, to take photos of those things, and to see even closer the intricacies of what make up those parts of nature are just really fascinating to myself and to my children.
That's awesome. That's great.
It's purely a amateur hobby at this point, but I love it.
Great. Yeah. I pretty much video everything, you know what I mean? Like when I'm in my go-kart, or if I usually have a camera on my camera filming over my shoulder just so I can see, the effect of it all. And as far as like keeping it a hobby, like for me, I found a line that this was a hobby of mine, making videos, and I had a great time with it, and I was playing with my toys in the sandbox. And then once it started to become, a monetary thing that I had to rely on, my mind kind of shifted, and it was a little bit more difficult to create. So when it comes to like this being your, financial provider, does that provide any difficulty for the artist part of you? Like, was there a time? So there's an anecdote that I'm just going to digress here too. There's a little kid in a sandbox and he's playing with his toys, and a man came by and said, "Hey, if you come back tomorrow and play with these same toys, I will give you $1."
Yeah.
Kid says, okay, shows up the next day, plays with his toys, guy gives him $1. Next day, same thing, and it goes on for like a week or so. And then finally the guy comes up and says, "Hey, you can keep playing with your toys, but I'm going to stop paying you." So now the little kid doesn't want to come to the sandbox and play with his toys anymore because there's a part of it that resulted in some sort of financial gain. So to keep it a hobby, I guess that would be closer to the question, how hard is it to keep it also a hobby when you have a studio to pay for, and you have gear to pay for, and you have...
So do I ever lose the joy in it because of the monetary? Which is such a great question, because there is a time period where you feel like you're burnt out and you've done the same thing over and over again. So I think it's really important to have hobbies like macro photography, or something that just brings you joy to create, or to create something just to bring you joy. So it's really important for me, especially in those super busy seasons. Like for me personally, I'm not, and it just because it doesn't work for me. One, because I'm terrible at time management, mostly because I'm terrible at time management. Mini sessions, I'm so bad at managing my time. So they just don't work for me. But my fall is very busy, and I constantly spend hours upon hours upon hours editing and being away from my family and taking other families' photos. And I find joy in that moment of creating those connections for the family. But the post-processing for me, while I love editing, gets very mundane for me. And it's not all the time, but when you're very busy and you're doing it all the time, it's important to realize that this is still your craft. This is still something that brings in revenue for you. It's not something that you can just be like, I can just put this aside. It's something that, it is you as a family rely on to bring income in, and some other families also relying on you have captured those memories for you. So you can't just give it up. So what I'm saying is, in those times where you're feeling overwhelmed, find something that brings you joy. Take that time. I know you have deadlines, and this goes for everything. You have deadlines, but if you're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out, find something that brings you joy, relate it parallel to what you're doing, so that you can find your joy again and come back refreshed. So whether that be macro, or whether that be product, or you have this concept of something that you've been wanting to do. For me, it would be like a fun, creative shoot where I have an idea of a dress, and I want it to have this kind of background, and I want it to be in this kind of scene. Like, go out and create that thing that's been on your to-do list that you've been wanting to get those creative juices flowing again. Go do that. Like, take that moment. And if you need to communicate that there's a delay, communicate that there's a delay. But it's better for your craft if you don't lose the joy in it. So find something that creates your joy.
Sure.
Again.
There's a big balance to it all.
Yeah.
Like, even what I'm doing, like editing all the time, editing videos a lot.
Yeah.
It does get a little mundane. I think the things that I create are what I want to create.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. But sometimes it's just too much, and I need to go and do something else, like you said. And even I'll just go out back sometimes and just start a time lapse, and then just come back in 3 hours and see what happens. You know what I mean? Just to kind of get my mind outside of the normal of what I have to do.
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, like you said, with editing, we're probably up. How late? How late's the latest you stayed up to edit?
All night, yeah. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. And you're doing it in the dark of those hours, and you got to get up and do it all over again. It can get trying.
Yeah, and you're alone. You know what I mean? So that's one of the hard. How do you stay motivated in moments like that? Is it the knowledge that one day you'll be able to go shoot more macro photography and take your time with it, or teach your kids how to use the camera? Like, how do you keep motivated in those moments of dullness?
Wine. No.
Give me wine.
I know. I just like knowing the completion of a project. So I thrive on like positive feedback. So
Sure.
I love the process of delivering a gallery or seeing. I have tiered packages, so some packages come with all the images and some packages come with images that clients hand select. I love seeing the choices that they select versus what I would have selected. And I really love sharing my galleries with my family as well. Like I can't wait for my husband to see what I've created, or to like show my daughters, like, look, this is what was done, or like show them how it was done, to like, if they're up, if it's not 3 a.m. in the morning, to like bring them in and say like, look, you can change the catch lights in this person's eyes by using this brush, and like showing them how to do it. And then they get like, or if I'm working with newborns, and I adore working with newborns, and a lot of times they have little flecks of skin all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm not airbrushing all of that out because that's part of the moment. But like something that's really obtrusive and like draws your eye away from the actual moment, we're gonna remove that. So I show them like how it is to remove that and what a difference that makes. And then they get really into, how can we change this? What colors, like why is this created this way?
Yeah. So the knowledge of knowing there's going to be an end to celebrate, essentially.
That keeps me going.
Yeah,
those last 10 photos.
For sure, yeah. No,
and get into the last home stretch. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, I always told myself, like, look, I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish this eventually. Why not now? Mm-hmm. And that has always kept me going. Can you talk about a little bit about the post-production process, editing and things like that? Like how much do you need to know about like color theory or Photoshop or things along the way, that the tools that you use, not only knowledge-wise, but computer-wise, that you need?
It's ever evolving. So I started with, when you start out, I had no, like doing landscape, I was never aware of color theory. I wasn't looking at a tree and thinking a person with a yellow jacket would be perfect right there. Like that's not something that I was just taking the image because it looked beautiful and it brought me joy. And then as the skill developed, I worked with editing programs. So at first, when I started photography, I was just using whatever program came with my computer for editing a photo, where I could adjust the light as I saw fit, not necessarily doing a white balance, where I could straighten the horizon because I didn't think when shooting the image that the horizon should be straight.
Right.
So now I'm straightening that in post-processing. And over time, the developing programs have become increasingly more aware of how post-processing goes. So we talked about AI previously. So when those programs through Adobe with Lightroom and Photoshop, they've become increasingly more capable of adjusting things and then filling backgrounds, like for spots where you've adjusted the image and cropped the image. But in terms of knowing knowledge for those programs, it does take a good amount of knowledge to know what is a white balance, what is true white on the image, and how that affects the entire image from the beginning to the final product. If your white balance is off, the whole image is going to be off. Or if you send an image with a crooked horizon, like someone's going to know that. And then in terms of color theory, I personally believe that styling a family has a huge impact on what the final image looks like. So if you are shooting in an urban area, like in a street, you're probably going to want to match that area's aesthetic to create a more visually impactful image. Or if you're shooting in a field, you're not going to want a ball gown on. You're going to want something flowy. You're going to want textures. You're going to want colors that complement the season around you. And the same goes for the whole family. So when I talk about styling, you'll want those textural pieces that bring another element. And then you want to make sure that it all coordinates very well together, because if you see something like a whole family has got, I love working with earth tones and neutrals, and then I like jewel tones as well, like those earthy jewel tones, bright, like those deep bright blues, or those like rich greens or like rich reds. Like I love those colors. You got someone wearing that, and then you have someone wearing a completely a yellow or an orange, a color that doesn't completely match with the aesthetic. Your eye will be immediately drawn like to that image or something with a logo. So styling for a family is very important to me because it creates a more cohesive image at the end, which is where color theory comes in, because you can capture, if you're showing up to a family session, the most important thing is that you just show up. If you come in matching clothing, you come in matching clothing. I would advise against it, but if it happens, it happens. You showed up for the family photos. You've showed up to document this time of your life. But if we're going for impactful images, styling and knowing what colors go well together, and then how to create a cohesive image in Photoshop afterwards, and what draws your attention to the subject and what draws your attention away from the subject. It's pretty important to me.
Now, you went to physical therapy school.
Yeah.
Where are you getting all this information? How do you know your style? How do you know all this color stuff? How do you know how to frame a photo correctly? Is this just practice?
I think honestly, it's just practice.
Wow.
I've surrounded myself with a very large photography community, a lot of educators. I go to classes, I partake in mentorships. I do shootouts with other photographer friends where we are willing to learn from each other. And it's you could always look at people as your competition, or on a higher level, you can look at people as your collaborators. We all have things that we can learn from each other, and we could be similar, but we can still respect and learn crafts and other skills. Like I was saying with the editing programs, it's always a learning. There's things that I know now that I didn't know 5 years ago, and 5 years from now, I'll look back at myself and hopefully think, man, I wish I'm a better version of me than I was 5 years ago because of the things that I've known. And I'm really happy with me right now, but I'm excited to see me in 5 years.
Wow, yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I want to see you in 5 years too.
Yeah.
And with regards, you mentioned AI before, like with regards to that future, like do you feel like that's a threat? Do you feel like there's something that might be taken away from even just your creative process with too much AI? Like what does that even mean?
I mean, it could be a threat. It is something, it's all in moderation in how you use that tool. I think it's a great tool for editing as long as you're using it as an accentuation to the image and not creating a completely different image. I will say it is very fun to work with, but it's not something that I will create. Like if a client comes to me and they're like, I need to be in a red dress and they're wearing purple. I would like to be in a street and we're shooting in a field. I would like to have butterflies in my hair, and I'd like my husband from this photo put into this image, and he also needs to be in a different suit. It's going to take hours and hours and hours of work. I could probably create it, but that wasn't a real moment. That wasn't what actually happened. When you look back at that image, you're gonna remember how that never happened. And that's not the kind of art that I think needs to be created. I mean, art is a form of expression. It should elicit feelings for others, no matter what you're looking at. And if you're looking at something that never, if it's fake, if it's not something that's pulling that emotion from you, what is that? is that the kind of art that you want? Is that the kind of art I want? If I crop in too tight on someone and I need to fix my composition or create like that third balance and I need to expand the canvas, I can do that. I can also before AI, I hand edited the daylights out of some images to extend a background or extend a background where I needed to take a tree line from this image and put it on this image, and I lost a toe in this image, so I needed to take the toe from the other image and put it in here. I can hand edit. I've done it. Does AI make it a lot easier? Yeah. AI also adds extra things that you don't want. I mean, I've had extra children that didn't belong in there, where you just circle around something, you're like, I just need this hair removed, and suddenly a face appears.
That's funny.
There are weird things that it comes up with. I don't think it's right now. It's not going to replace what I do, but if you give it enough power and enough people do continually only create with that, I think it could be used for like the wrong reasons.
Sure, yeah. I think right before this, the phrase that I use is, it's okay to be the paintbrush, but not the painter.
And it was perfect. And I tried not to say that so hard because that was such a great face.
Yeah, you can use my line. It's okay. It's okay. Use it anytime you want.
I love good analogies, and that was a great analogy.
Great. Oh, well, thank you. So somebody sitting at home, a young woman, doesn't know what to do with their future, once had a camera and loved it. What advice can you give them to get to a point where you can not only love it, but get paid to do it and keep it as a hobby that you can share with your kids? Like, what's the first steps they can take into learning photography?
Just pick it up. Just pick up the camera. And I'll be the first to admit, when I first started shooting, I was shooting on auto. For a long time, I shot with AF priority, where I was prioritizing my f-stop for the images, where I wanted everything with a super like blurry background, where my f-stop was so low and everything was very like in detail for that one person, but not for the rest of what I was shooting. So like, it's just a learning curve, where if you start in auto and you review your images, you can see all the details of how you shot, what worked for this light you're shooting, what worked at this time of day. You learn to work around the kind of light that you like with outside, the kind of light that you like with inside, where your natural light pockets are. And then it's great to find those natural light pockets too. It's great to see what the image looks like in black and white. Like, you just play around and see what you like and how that art speaks to you when you create. So pick up the camera, shoot in auto, try to learn your camera and see what works for you, what brings you joy, and then just continue to build on that. And if you wanted to go professional, or if you want to start taking on more clients, you want to do this for other people, you want to see if this is even something that you would enjoy, I'm pretty sure when I started out, I said I would not do newborns. I would not do newborns. I did not want to do them. They were scary. They were tiny. They were floppy. I didn't know how to pose them. For the longest time, I was not doing newborns. I did most of my clients last year were newborns.
Well, wait a second, before or after you had kids?
Even before, like as I had kids, I did not want to be a newborn photographer. I went to I had newborn photos for them.
Sure.
I watched them go through that. I was like, this is a struggle. This is not the session that I look back at my daughter's newborn photos and I'm like, we were there for 4 hours. It was long. My sessions are not 4 hours. It's all in how you approach that type of session. But newborns are some of my favorite things now. And again, because I just allowed myself the possibility of learning and like continue to practice and figure out what brings you joy. And something that brought you joy, when I picked up my camera, I wanted to be a wedding photographer. I shot 3 weddings and said, no, thank you. I was not doing that anymore. It was not for me. So
Fair enough. Well, that's fantastic advice. I really appreciate you coming by today, talking about cameras, talking about photography, and just being an artist. Like, it really is a joy to just be able to be free in what you create and being able to see a tangible product when you're done, and you're sharing it with your kids, which is absolutely beautiful.
Right, I'm so excited about that.
Well, Megan, thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And if you want to talk to Megan or check her out, she's
These lovely moments.
on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Great. And we'll leave some info in the bio, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe on all platforms for future episodes. If you'd like your podcast recorded or need a space for filming, please visit 15northvideo.com for more information.